Greetings and welcome to the channel. Today we're at the Church of St Peter and St Paul in Rock, Worcestershire. This is another one of Simon Jenkins' England's 1,000 Best Churches, and this church is given 2 stars out of 5. This church is famous for its romanesque, by which I mean Norman, architecture, and we get a side view of the elaborate double window openings complete with supporting decorative columns. We're actually approaching on the northern side of the church, and here we'll briefly stop to see the decorative courses around the Norman doorway. Now, I visited here about 13 months ago, much earlier in my journey, and therefore was fairly clueless about what I was seeing, and therefore I didn't linger here as long as I should have. I consoled myself with the notion that I was bound to have taken lots of photographs of this, but I did not. Still, we can briefly delight in the ironwork, which might distract us enough from weeping about all the decoration that I forgot to capture, or at least we could have if I hadn't reminded you of it. But wait, it looks like I'm about to scan the video camera over the decorations after all. That will teach me to actually look at what I've recorded before I embark upon the narration, won't it? Well, maybe not. If you realised how many days I spend editing these videos, you might be more forgiving. So on your behalf, I shall forgive myself. Phew, after that, it's a relief to look at some greenery. Now, Rock isn't between a hard place, but it's actually near Kidderminster. And if you live in the suburbs, possibly surrounded by vast swathes of greenery. Now, before we venture inside the church, I'm actually going to circumnavigate the exterior. That means I'm going to walk around it. Of course, you knew that. Now, the day I was here was rather a windy day, and also there was a man cutting the hedge who's just come into view. I actually had a very interesting conversation with him and was able to delight and impress him with my pidgin knowledge of the Normans. I like to think I talked to him of mullions, gargoyles and tracery, but more likely I probably just pointed out what is in view and adroitly told him that's a window. At least I didn't say it's double glazed and made of an early form of PVC, which the Normans of course discovered. Now, I've talked over it, but apparently the tower is aged between the late 12th century or early 13th century. This was according to an AI overview, which according to an eminent computer scholar should be taken as a confident liar. Now, Lionel from greatenglishchurches.co.uk says the tower dates from 1510. AI is a mischievous toddler. Don't rely on it. Back to the church and some ornate ironwork. Let's get touchy-feely with it. I guess this is the south porch. Porch is probably a bit of a stretch. If it was raining, I wouldn't want to shelter by it. And here we pause a while to look at another door and some more delightful ironwork, which is quite wiggly and woggly. It is functional and has curves in all the right places. The raised tomb that we are approaching relates to Richard Knox, who died in 1821. It seems unusual that it's above the earth, almost like he was afraid of worms. Apparently there's an unusual gravestone depicting a man named George Lewis, a carpenter who died in 1830. The stone shows a skeleton pointing to a fallen tree branch that killed him. Alas, I didn't notice this as I went around. Speak, friend, and enter. Like Tolkien referring to the gates of Moria, though we need not light a torch to guide our way, nor fear the presence of the Balrog. Unlike Gandalf, I have no staff to guide or support me, just my own curiosity. We're now looking east towards the chancel and its elaborate arch. There's a close-up of the arch decorations towards the end in the pictures. The bases of the chancel arch are also decorated. We pass the silent murmur of the choir on our way towards the altar, delighting at the colours that emerge out of the light, not noticing that we are under the watchful eye of a ceramic owl. I'm not sure here if he's framed by Norman columns or whether there's a Victorian representation of them. The east window is quite modest, but I like the insets either side of it. On closer look, it all appears to be Victorian, but I'm not sniffy about such things. I enjoy them as much as I enjoy many of the other artefacts. Although he hasn't a hooded cloak, the staff of light and the keys can't help but remind me of the hermit in Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, or maybe a representation of some tarot card. The colourful tile work is likely Victorian too, if not Edwardian. I like the profile of the crisply carved reredos, again stylistically Victorian I think. Do challenge me if you think I'm incorrect. My understanding is still in its infancy, and I do tend to blunder around like a toddler that has just found its feet, and pretty soon the ground again. Here's the other panel from the right hand side of the reredos. And also the reredos projection from the other side. And here we're in the memorial area of the church with a nice little display of silhouetted soldiers and poppies. We've not long had the Remembrance Day in the UK, and I was actually here a year ago. I've always had a keen interest in military matters and have visited many of the famous sites from the First and Second World War. It would be nice if the war to end all wars had been a reality, but humans have yet to evolve to a state where that can be so. I quite like this simple ornamentation leading up to the pulpit. I'm just stepping back so we can get a better view of it. We now enter the Lady Chapel. The altar table we are approaching is supposedly Saxon, and upon it there are several consecration crosses that can be discerned, particularly on the leading edge. I'm getting touchy-feely again. Can't help myself. There's something seemingly special about being able to touch the past. I've just noticed this memorial slab to Richard Smith, last of the Carthusian rectors. Now I've just found this out, but the Carthusian order is a Catholic religious order founded by St. Bruno in 1086, known for its strict contemplative life that combines solitude and community. Apparently the order's motto is, "The cross is steady while the world turns." Apologies about this visual. As you can see, I'm rather against the light. We're now approaching a Norman font with its stylized decoration, and I'm left to ponder how many times I've ventured into churches over the years, not realizing what it was that I was looking at and what its age might be, oblivious to it, like the child that was being christened in it. Did you hear the sound then? It rather sounded like someone was playing ping pong. I guess all these items relate to a weather vane, although the cockerel rather looks like the insignia of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. In my youth I used to have a Glenn Hoddle t-shirt. He played midfield for Spurs in the 1970s and went on to manage a club near where I live. My interest in football has declined, no doubt replaced by a multitude of other interests. The next items are rather macabre. Here is a set of stocks, used for shaming people who had done some wrong. And also there's a whipping post to the right of it. Apparently the whipping post was last used in 1860. It would seem to have the facility to whip two people at once. Of course, these are no longer in the position they would originally have been in. They often were performed as a spectacle in front of a crowd. The stocks, it seems, are dated 1782, and given they were last used in 1860, it means they were utilised for 78 years. The whipping post had been erected in 1773, which means they had 87 years of service. Think how much pain was administered in that time, perhaps wrongly to someone. They were moved into the church in 1965 to prevent further deterioration by weather, traffic and vandals. Well, I'm now at the end of my journey here. All that remains is for me to thank you for joining me on this journey. Do stop by to have a look at the photographs at the end here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. Now, where did I park my car?